Hey, are you Tyler?
Hey, yeah,
Do you want to walk around US Bank Stadium today?
I'd love to. A sports business content creator. I make content on TikTok, and then I also own a sports marketing agency too. Talk a lot about the human interests, economic, financial stories, anything that happens off the field or the court. I find really interesting. Try to make it as accessible and understandable for people who may not be into that sort of thing as much as I can. For a while, I was creating content on anything that came to my mind, and that often resulted in stuff that wasn't very good, didn't perform well, and I didn't really like doing it. So I just tried to find a overlap of things that I felt like I could do for, a couple months or a couple years if I needed to. Stuff that obviously performed well. It helps when your work is seen by a lot of people, and stuff that I felt like I was qualified to talk about. I think I was looking at what other people were doing and talking about and saying I was going to replicate that, and not doing stuff that I found really interesting or that I had a lot of knowledge about. And once I was able to check all three of those boxes, that's when I really found it was easier to make content and to start performing. As long as I'm doing more stuff tomorrow that I like doing and less of the stuff I don't like doing, that's moving forward. I think a lot of times when creators get into this line of work where there's kind of this like ambiguous, you don't know if you're moving forward in life, you maybe feel like you're stuck in a rut. I like to just take it from a 30,000 foot view of, okay, am I doing more stuff today that I like doing and less stuff that I don't like doing that I did yesterday, a week ago, a year ago? And so that's how I sort of track my progress forward. It all starts with me finding that thread that I want to pull. Behind that, I sit down and start writing. That writing process, I like to script out all my videos word for word. That way, I'll usually spend 30 minutes to an hour scripting a video. And I like to try to pull different B-roll clips as I'm editing and as I'm recording that I think would match up with what I'm saying. Videos, it's the first time they're ever going to see you. So you have to, in 3 seconds, give them what you're going to talk about, why they should care, and why you're the best person to talk about it. And that can be a lot to jam into 5 seconds. So you have to have a really compelling hook. You have to say something sort of sensationalized. You have to open up a loop that you're not going to close until the end, a reason for them to keep watching. And then you have to go through and back up that sensationalized aspect of it, right? You can't just clickbait them and not follow through on what you're going to say. So, to me, it's really nailing that first 5 seconds, jamming as much context into it as possible, and then backing it up the rest of the video. Video I made about the funding of this stadium that we're walking by right now, talking about how it was, the opening line of the video, if you want to talk about a hook, was talking about how this US Bank Stadium is the ugliest stadium in the world. People didn't like that, obviously. A lot of Minnesota sports fans watching the video, seeing me calling it the ugliest stadium in the world while standing in front of it and not liking it. And obviously the point of the video was not about how ugly it was. It's actually a very nice stadium, I have to admit, but it was more about what the stadium could have looked like. Because there are a lot of other renderings and concepts for what the stadium could look like with a retractable roof or an open roof or one side open. And so I sort of walked through what that could have looked like, and then I talked a bit about the funding structure of the stadium, because it's actually pretty unique. The stadium, like a lot of stadiums these days, are funded in large part by public tax money. So this stadium was funded over half, about $500 million, by Minnesota and Minneapolis state taxes. $400 for a Minneapolis resident and about $60 if you just lived in the state of Minnesota went towards paying for this stadium. They legalized what are called electronic pull tabs, and those are basically slot machines that you can sit at a bar and play.
Yes, I've seen them.
You'll see them. And they put something like a 6-7% tax on these things, and they just exploded in popularity, like way beyond what people thought it would be. And so while they were raking in a couple $1 billion a year in revenue, the state of Minnesota was taking about 6 to 7% of that in taxes, and they were putting that tax money right back into paying off the $500 million they borrowed to build the stadium. And these electronic pull tabs were so successful that the state of Minnesota was actually able to pay off the debt for this stadium, which at the time, this year is about $300 million. They were able to pay it off 23 years early. And so in all the interest payments that they saved, and all the time that they saved in paying this thing off, we actually saved as a tax base about $260 million in money we didn't have to pay because we were able to pay off the stadium.
Just from pull tabs?
Just from electronic pull tabs,
that's amazing.
which is really impressive. Me on TikTok, Instagram, LinkedIn, Tyler Webb. You should be able to find me there easily. If you're a fan of sports and business, I think you might like some of the stuff that I made.